All right. Hello, ACF women. This is Heather Timmons, and I'm here with Heather Molger.
Hi.
And we're going to talk about women's ministry today. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's good to have you in here.
Thanks. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's very good. So we're going to get into women's ministry, of course, but you do a number of things around the church. And I'd love to hear you share some of that because a lot of it is behind the scenes and people probably don't realize. If I get stumped on something, it's almost always you, sometimes Sandy, that I go to. But if it's something to figure out around the office, honestly, from where's a light bulb to how does this work to what's the best way to order this, I feel like you're tracking those things.
Yeah, so I really have some strong administrative giftings. That's what the Lord has given me. And I like to see things run smoothly. I love to see things organized for people. I just like to see follow through. So communication is big for me. So I do wear a lot of hats, but it all kind of falls under the name of administration. So anything from being the person who answers the phone calls and directs where they need to go, to sometimes managing the pastor's calendars, to following up on emails, setting up systems so that we can follow through with people when they contact the church and they know who to talk to, where to get information, making sure that information's consistent, those kinds of things.
Yes.
And then I have a passion for cooking. I love to cook.
Yes.
So I also end up doing a lot of meals, whether it's an event happening at the church or it's something for the staff, or if there have been times in the past where we've had women's ministry events and I would cater that just because that's just a joy that I have. I love to feed people. Yeah. So I really enjoy it.
Yeah. And I love that you love to do it.
Thanks.
And I love that you're really thoughtful because I have a lot of dietary restrictions and you have made some amazing things that I've been able to eat and it makes me feel so loved and I appreciate it.
I'm glad.
So, thank you.
I love to love people through food.
Well, and I love to be loved through food. So
good. It works out. Well. It's a win-win for most people.
It is. Okay. So did you want to add anything else into that or do you want to dive into women's ministry?
I'd love to talk about women's ministry.
Okay. Yeah. So I'd like to hear how you got started and just your heart behind that, your passion,
sure,
your vision.
So, some years ago, the Lord really took me through a lot of transformation. I had an identity of who I identified as and what I knew about myself as far as being shy and being an introvert. And I'm still an introvert. That's my nature. But, a horrible fear of public speaking. I was very much a tomboy growing up, and I just got along better with boys, with guys.
Right.
And really, I didn't have a lot of close girlfriends. And the older I got, just, experiences in life, I really didn't like women, honestly.
Yeah.
And then the Lord started to just really change who I saw myself as and redeem that and change me into who He wanted me to be.
Right.
And I didn't know what that was going to be. But He called me to a job where suddenly public speaking was the main purpose of my job. And it was terrifying at first. Yeah. And then, in time, now I'm completely comfortable getting up in front of people and speaking. And it was the Lord, because I would not have chosen that.
Right.
In fact, there was a time where I was making all of these really big changes that I would joke with my husband and say, if it's something I would normally run screaming from, then it's probably the Lord asking me to do it because I kept getting these opportunities that I would not have chosen for myself, but it was obvious that the Lord was in them.
Right.
And so just being able to submit to that and let Him change me and change what I knew or what I thought I knew about myself and instead letting the Lord do that. And that that speaks a lot to ultimately ending up serving women as well, because like I said, I really didn't have a heart for women. I didn't like women, and that sounds awful.
Can I pause you right there?
Sure, absolutely.
I am so glad that you shared that because I'm sure there's a number of women that can really relate to that. I have always had a number of girlfriends and things like that, but I've also had some really deep hurts by women in my life. And so I think that for you to have that and to have healed through that really brings a depth of compassion for a lot of women. Because if someone has only had positive and happy experiences, they sometimes might forget to include people or to know how to love someone or how to reach out to someone who's had a very different experience. And I'll tell you, those wounds that come in,
they're deep.
Like, they're very deep. Yeah. They're very deep. Yes. And I know even me, I've had a number of girlfriends, but once you experience some hurt like that, it changes your heart a bit. So I love how God has taken you to a place of healing and made some of those weak things your strength.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's totally the Lord, because again, it wasn't something I was looking for. Well, I take that back. I was lonely.
Right.
I do long to have female relationships,
right?
Because I'm married, so I don't seek out relationships with other men now.
Right.
Before that, when I was single, I had all guy friends.
Right.
I just didn't have close girlfriends.
Right.
But once I got married, it was very lonely because I had my husband and I didn't have girlfriends.
Right.
So
right.
Years ago, it's probably been close to 10 years now, maybe, I was asked to join the women's ministry, which I was happy to do because of my giftings. Like I was asked to help with events, and I love to cook, and I love to administrate, and I have an affinity for technology, so I was able to do all of our technical stuff. And, and so I joined the women's ministry team in some ways out of my own strengths. I mean, the Lord gave me those gifts, but I was working in my strengths. And at that same time, that's when I was also starting to work in my weaknesses through the Lord. And he was calling me into, getting up and speaking in front of people and doing some teaching. And then after just a couple of years, the director of women's ministry came to me because she needed to step down. And she said, I've been praying and seeking a new leader for women's ministry, and I'd really like you to pray about it. I think you'd be great. And I was taken aback because, like I said, I was still in this place where I'm like, I don't even like women. How can I be the director of women's ministry when I don't have a heart for women? So I was like, Lord, if you want this, you have to give me a heart for women, because I don't have it naturally. And I wrestled through it and prayed about it and really felt like the Lord was saying that this was where he was calling me. And it was all during this time of transition where he was really working in me. And he really, there were a lot of days and weeks where I just spent in tears, as he kind of broke down those barriers and those identities that I thought I had, my feelings towards people based on my own hurts and things like that. And he did. He transformed me. And I do have a heart for women. I do, especially the forgotten, those who feel probably similarly to me, who feel like I just don't identify with other ladies. There's so much gossip, or it's cliquish, or, because we've experienced that to some degree.
Those
most
things
of
can
us
at times be true.
Yeah,
and whether you,
it is.
Yeah, whether you naturally have girlfriends or not, if you've been through things like that and been hurt by it, let me tell you.
And it can happen with men too. It can. But but I identified it as all being just that's how women are, and I couldn't find my group. I couldn't fit in. So I really was able to the Lord was able to change that and to give me a heart for that same group of people who just maybe feel the same way, who feel isolated, who don't have girlfriends, or who have a hard time connecting with, or just don't feel safe around women sometimes. And so that is how I got into women's ministry. It was really the Lord calling me. It wasn't something I sought. It wasn't something I even had an inkling of, this is what I want to do. I want to be the leader of women's ministry. It was like, Lord, if you want me to do this, you're going to have to show me and give me a heart for it. And it's been amazing.
Good.
I do really have a heart to reach women. And this may be jumping ahead some. I know we kind of have some ideas of what we want to talk about, but that's something that I'm just really struggling with right now in the era of COVID, and with not being able to meet regularly like we were. Like, how do I serve the women of this body? How does this ministry serve the women of this body? And so I know we'll get into it in more depth, but I just want to encourage anyone who's listening to this, who's a part of ACF, who's a woman, reach out to us if you can think of some need, some way that we could be serving you, because we want to be able to come alongside and minister to the women here.
I think that's great. So any of you listening, if there's something on your heart that you feel would be encouraging or helpful, just know that this is basically an invitation to share that. If you can't think of anything, that's okay too. I feel like people have been in a place of feeling chronically overloaded. And at the same time needing something, but maybe not always able to put into words what they need. And so I'm excited to talk about the things that we have, though, that we have talked about and are looking to move ahead on. But yes, definitely an invitation to reach out and to share if there's something that you would like to see happen, because
yeah, you could fill out a Connect card online or an email to the church. Like I said, I am kind of the communications clearinghouse, so I'll get it.
Yes.
And if it needs to go elsewhere, I can forward it elsewhere. But, if it's for women's ministry, it's going to come to me and I'm going to see it. So
yeah, that's great. Okay, so we didn't necessarily talk about if we had an order we wanted to go through these things on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to rearrange our order just a little bit and talk about the retreat.
Okay.
And we'll come back to the 1 year Bible, because I want to talk about that a little more in depth.
Yeah.
So retreat last year was fantastic.
It was so good.
It was so good. I had not been to a women's retreat in a number of years, partly because my husband was traveling at different points, or just we had moved, or just, different things were going on and I hadn't been to one. And I ended up going last year, and so grateful that I did. It was fantastic. Everything about it was wonderful. So talk to us a little bit about women's retreat.
Yeah, so we had such an amazing time. And part of that was just at a beautiful venue.
It was.
We were able to get
Really
Lake
was.
Bradley Christian Camp.
Yep.
And it's a little bit of a drive. We'd been hesitant before because it's a drive and
Yeah.
it's expensive.
Yeah.
But we were able, the Lord blessed us in being able to get it. And it really, they just take such good care of
That's for sure.
of their visitors.
They do.
And so, the speaker was great. The Lord met us. We had some really sweet time of worship and of just individual time with the Lord that he really met us. I heard that from so many women, and that was really great. And
can I jump in real quickly?
Yeah.
The schedule was so great, because I felt like there was enough structure and enough free time to just get in that personal time with the Lord, that yes, it was a beautiful balance.
Yeah, and that's something for me, and maybe again, I lean towards my own inclinations, but for me, retreat, it needs to be a retreat. Like it's good to have teaching. There's conferences and stuff if you want to go strong and get teaching and see lectures and dig deep. But for retreat, for me, that means retreat. That means relaxing. That means spending time with the Lord. And that was what was nice about Lake Bradley too, is that at least from a women's ministry team, so often when we put on retreats, it's not a retreat for us. We are working our rear ends off, trying to make sure it is a retreat for all the people attending. So what's nice about that venue is that they do all that work. Right. And it was a good retreat for me too. I had time to really spend with the Lord.
I want to go back to something you just said, the distinction between a conference and a retreat.
Yeah.
I think that's really key.
Yeah.
Because what you were running was definitely a retreat. It felt refreshing. Conferences can be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
But oftentimes you come home and you need to take a nap. And you have like information overload, right?
Right, yeah.
And this, I came home refreshed.
Yeah, and that's really what we seek. When we say we're having a retreat, I hope that is what it comes across as being. Right. There will be instruction, there may be a speaker, but it's encouraging, it's refreshing. It is a time to get away from the hectic pace of life and meet the Lord. And maybe we can facilitate that through testimony or through a dynamic speaker, but also just through worship and through quiet time, and through going and having fun. I mean, we had some time to just go into town and shop or go to the beach and walk around. So that's what we try to do. And so for our retreat this October, the plan would be the same if not for COVID. We were able to get Lake Bradley again. Okay. It's reserved. Okay. But it is up in the air, right? Like everything is. Yep. Right. So in fact, I just received a letter today, even though we had called them a few weeks ago. Denise called to check in with them, and it really is just on a day-by-day basis. So as we get closer, it's probably going to be a last-minute thing. Yeah. As we get closer to our date in October, I think it's towards the end. I think it's October 22nd through the 25th. I probably should have looked that up before we came online, but I believe that's the time frame. It's a weekend. They're going to let us know whether or not they're even able to host the camp. Got it. And then we'll have a choice to make as to whether we decide to go through with the retreat or maybe just hold over our week for next year. Got it. So it's, we're working on it. We want to have it. I know last year we were announcing in August so people could start to pay for it and know what was going on, and we could get a good turnout. And it's not that we've forgotten. It's different this year. We just don't know what's going to happen. Okay. So those of you who are thinking you might want to go to the retreat, we'll get those dates at some point, and you can mark them on your calendar, and just like everything right now,
just mark it in pencil, because it may happen or it may not. But that way, if it does happen last minute,
you're ready.
You're ready.
Yeah.
And you can do that.
Yeah.
So yes, and those of you who have younger kiddos and family logistics, might be something worth talking over how to make that happen, if at all possible for you, even if it's last minute.
Yeah.
Good. So anything else about the retreat that you wanted to mention?
Not at this time. You know, it's tough. It will probably be a little less, we probably won't have a main speaker, just because for the same reason, trying to secure somebody, you know, and be like, well, maybe you'll come and maybe you won't. And maybe, you know, maybe we'll have a budget for that and maybe we won't. So it will look different in what we do. Maybe it'll be more workshop style. I know the year before this retreat, we did some inductive Bible study. That was really great. Just really diving into the word. And we did some testimony, because that's really encouraging as well, to hear what the Lord has done in other people's lives.
Love that.
So it would probably look more like that than it would a single speaker or two. With just this time of, with this, everything that's going on, that's not probably going to be possible.
Right. That makes sense. That sounds good. Okay. So I switched the order on the 1 Year Bible, because last year, the 1 Year Bible was a big part of the retreat.
That's right. So our speaker, Debbie Bryson, was a big proponent of the 1 Year Bible. And I wasn't sure about it. I mean, I would like to read through the Bible, and you get to do it in a year, but in fact, I have mine. No, I don't. It's moved over. Okay. It's on the other table. Mine's really tattered because we got a puppy, and my puppy found the Bible and tore the cover off, so mine's all taped up, but I still use it. But it was really neat because it takes you through the Bible in a whole year. And there's lots of 1 year reading plans. But I don't know about you. I mean, I tend to kind of get bogged down through Numbers and Chronicles and Leviticus and some of those. Parts. What I loved about this Bible is that it's broken up. You do read the entire Bible in a year, but you start in Genesis 1, you start in Matthew 1, Psalms 1, and Proverbs 1, and you read from each of them every day. So it breaks that up. You're reading Old Testament, but then you're reading Gospel, and then you're reading Psalms, and then you're reading a proverb. So, and it has room in the margins for notes. It even has some coloring in it if you like to do that. Just time to meditate and color while you're reading the Word. I started out with some beautiful colorings on mine, and that faded after about a month. But notes in the margin, and then, and in addition, she actually wrote a devotional that accompanies it for the Proverbs.
That's right.
So I know some people bought that too, to have like a devotion time to go with their daily reading, but it really takes 10 to 15 minutes a day, and you go through the whole Bible in a year. And if you start to bog down in Numbers, the next thing you know, that ends after a chapter, and you're reading John, and then you're reading some wonderful praise from David and the Psalms. And so I really like that format. And
I like it as well.
Yeah.
It's been beneficial. And I've told you, I found an audio version.
Yes.
And so that's how I start my day. I get up and put it on my phone and start that audio version. And I like it. In the beginning, I was trying to reread it later in the day, and I realized that's not always very realistic for me. So I at least am listening to it. Some days I'm reading it. Most of the days I'm listening to it. But I do love that there's a free online resource so that I can listen on the exact same plan as our 1 Year Bible.
That's right. And what I think is neat is that a lot of us at the retreat bought it. And then after we got back, we also promoted it at the church. And we started a Facebook group as well for everybody who's going through it. So there's commonality. There's something really neat about reading something that day and knowing that 20 or 30 other ladies read it too. And you can be like, hey, what did you guys think about this?
Right.
And in fact, I liked it so much. For Christmas, I bought my husband and my boys a more utilitarian version, not so many flowers and coloring, but so that they can be in it and we can all discuss throughout, like, what did you think of today's reading? What was, so just being in the Word is so important, especially right now, especially right now. And it's a really easy way to do it, whether you get to listen to it and, while you're driving or getting ready in the morning, or you have the time to sit down and read through it. Right. And then knowing there's a community of others who are reading the same thing, and you can talk about it. So, so if you're interested in that, you can order it off Amazon. I think it's really reasonable. It's like $15, or it's not very much money.
Yes. And on your women's ministry page, maybe we could put a picture of it, or maybe you have one from before so people could see.
Yeah.
Because I know there's different versions out there.
There are.
Right.
Yeah. So if someone's interested, if they're not already doing that, if they're interested in getting, because you can start it at any time.
Right. I started in October after our retreat.
So did I.
Yep.
And so I will finish it. I wasn't starting obviously Genesis 1, Matthew 1, because it's by date. We started towards the end of the Bible, but just when New Year's hit, we started over, and and I'll keep going through it. I would love to just keep doing it year by year.
That's what I plan to do as well. And do you have extra copies that people could buy?
I think we might have a copy or two left, because we were trying to sell them around Christmas time, and we may have some.
Okay.
But it's also easy to order
Probably easier to get it on Amazon at this point.
And then if you want to join that group, you can join the Facebook group and be a part of that discussion. And we're actually going to try and film some more video little blurbs to, on particular passages. So to kind of keep the group discussion going more, it's kind of fizzled some, but I know ladies are still reading it.
Yes.
So I want to hear what they have to say about what they're reading.
And as we get into fall, I think people are ready to pick up their routines a bit more, or if something's fallen by the wayside, or just settle into something more intentional and more purposeful. Very good. Let me look through what else we had on here. We've talked about doing a couple podcasts on women's ministry things. Did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. And, I do not love the sound of my own voice. So
sounds great to me, but I
thank you.
I understand.
So it's not just going to be, women's ministry. We want to serve women, and women have different needs. We're all unique and individual. And so we're trying to look at different topics, and we hope to also have different people to interview if they're gifted in that area. But we want to definitely talk about, we've talked about some podcasts on like hospitality, especially in the time of COVID, and biblical hospitality, especially right now when I think so many of us are craving interaction. We're not getting it. Many of us are not getting to work. There's not school. There's not even, even if church is meeting, there are many who can't come or choose not to come because of the concerns and the risks that might be involved. So I think it's an important issue to address. How do you be hospitable? How do you host? How do you stay safe with that, but still have those social interactions? So that's definitely a topic we're looking at for a podcast. Let's see, we talked about... What was some of the other? We talked about several. Do you remember?
You know what? I just had my notes and we were looking over them and I set them aside. So
I'm trying to remember
but
what they were.
Hospitality was the main one that I remember.
SelfCare.
SelfCare. That was the other one. That was it. Yes.
So I hear so many friends right now who are struggling, especially if they have little ones at home.
Yes.
Even if they don't.
Oh my goodness. Those mamas of littles right now do not get a break.
They don't.
Because, there's just no break right now. And so...
And if they're trying to work,
it's challenging. Yes.
And the kids are home all the time with school and they're going to have to try and support them in their schooling at home. And they still have responsibilities in the home, and men too, but there's a lot of burden that falls towards moms and towards women right now. And so just, we really want to address that and address self-care and how to take that time for yourself or those moments for yourself, how to refresh and nourish yourself so that you can continue to serve where the Lord has you. And it's a hard time right now. Yes. It is really hard for everyone, but especially see it with moms of those young ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you say self-care, I want to just clarify, we're talking about just the care of your soul.
Yes.
And the rest and things like that, because so often the world takes that to a different degree. It means I need to have
or massage or pedicures.
Right, above and beyond. Those things are not
wrong
bad.
With those, right?
However, we want to talk about what is the self-care that is actually life-giving to others, that enables us to go the distance, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that nourishing of your soul.
Yes. Very good. Very good. Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention? I think we've pretty much hit the points, except for my final question for you, which I'll surprise you with, but it'll be completely fine. So don't be nervous.
The only thing I think we talked about, and I skipped over when I talked about the invitation to give us feedback about how we could minister you, is what is the women's ministry vision and goal? Right. Why do we have a women's ministry here at ACF? I felt like we started there and
then we missed it. Yeah. Thank you for coming back to that.
It's pretty simple. I think when I prayed about becoming a part of women's ministry and directing women's ministry, my heart was how do we equip women?
Right.
And that is the vision and the goal, is equipping women to walk in their own faith and grow in their own faith. How do we support them in doing that? Whether it's through Bible studies or small groups or tiny little churches or house churches, how do we support women to grow in their faith?
Yes.
How do we equip and support women to share their faith and to minister to others, even if it is just in their family at this time, or if it's in their communities or at work? How do we teach and equip them to share that faith and to live that out? And ultimately, how do we equip them to serve in the way that God has commissioned us all to serve, and that is sharing the gospel? What does that look like? And that is actually another piece I'm really excited about. It's something that may be a podcast, or it may develop into something bigger, but just I think so many of us struggle with, I know I do personally struggle with evangelism. Like that is not a gifting for me, but we're all called to spread.
That's right.
The gospel. And so I think a lot of people I have read, I've been looking into this, wish their churches equipped them to do that. Like if they had the tools to do it, not just going out on the street and talking to strangers, which terrifies me. As an introvert, like I the Lord has moved me to public speaking, but not going up to strangers and just sharing. That's not where I'm at. And there are people who love that, and I admire them, and that is a calling and a gifting. It is not mine. So, but I feel that burden to obey the Lord in sharing my faith. So we want to look at how to equip women to do that too.
I love that.
So
I love that. I think that's really important, because it can sound very intimidating and scary and big, and yet learning how to be intentional just in our everyday lives. Maybe we're at the grocery store and just knowing, what could I say to this person, or how could I just speak words of kindness and life to someone, and then if Jesus opens the door to share more, to be equipped and ready to know how to do that. And I think that's something, I know for me, I've had some training in that, but if I'm not practicing it, I get rusty really fast.
Oh, absolutely.
If it is not something I am regularly rehearsing, I don't have those words on the tip of my tongue. I think of them later and think, oh, I should have said this, or I should have said that. So I'm excited for that. I think that'll be really good.
Me too.
All right. Is there anything else we wanted to talk about with this?
I don't think so.
We've covered a lot. A lot of good things.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is my question that I like to wrap up with. I just like to know, what are you grateful for today?
Oh my goodness. I'm actually grateful for the cool weather right now.
Yes.
Just a little break. I'm working another job where I'm out walking around from like 2 to 8, the hottest part of the day. I was really relieved to see the clouds today.
Yeah.
But I also, there's so much. I mean, I'm grateful. I actually am grateful that I got to cook for you all today, because I love it. It makes my heart happy to feed people.
I was going to say that paleo dessert that you made. I think that's what I'm grateful for today. It was a lime.
It was a key lime cheesecake,
but made with
avocados,
grain-free with avocado.
Yeah. It did not look at. I was making it going, oh my gosh, no one's going to eat this, and then I tasted
really
it, and it tastes like key lime cheesecake. So
when you started talking about cooking for the church, I was like, oh, I have to remember to take my extra cake home and not leave it here.
Yeah, it's all yours. It's all yours.
Good.
I wrapped
it was
up
very
for you.
good. Thank you so much for doing that. I'm so glad we got to sit here and talk.
Me too.
And hopefully some of you heard something that resonated with you, either you feel the invitation and you can reach out and share what you'd like to see in the future, or there's something that you'll look forward to hearing as we look to equip women at ACF.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.